Good afternoon. I have 2 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar here on Eastern Time. My name is Kathi Niccum. I'm the Education Director for the DPC Education Center, and welcome to our first 2019 webinar on Don't Make New Year's Resolutions, Fix Happiness Habits instead. So we are going to go ahead and get started, in just a couple of housekeeping tools as we do so. All of your phone lines are muted. To unmute, please press #6 to ask a question, either during the presentation or at the end. You can also leave a question or a message in the chat box. And then to be muted again after asking a question, it's *6. You'll receive the link to the recording. We also have a couple of handouts and some slides that will be emailed to you if you've registered for the webinar. And we encourage you to complete the feedback form that you will receive at the end of this program. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today's presenter. Steve Wilson is a psychologist, a humorist, he's an educator, he's a trainer, he's a member of our DPC Education Center Advisory Council. He's also the co-founder, director of World Laughter Tour, and has also started the April Laughter Month. You have on your screen a link to his website, which is www.worldlaughtertour.com. And you can personally get in touch with him there, or he has a number of resources, including the ones that you're going to receive from us. And he has things available in a number of different languages, which you'll hear more about later as well. So at this point, I am going to start my conversation with Steve as we talk about things, and I have questions to ask. And I'm going to start with saying first that I was happy with the title of Let's Not Do New Year's Resolutions, because just like the cartoon that's up there, which says, my New Year's resolution this year is to keep last year's resolutions. Well, I think that fits me to a T, although I can't even remember last year's or the year before because I always forget them right away. So, Steve, let's start with, what are the reasons not to make New Year's resolutions?
First, let me say thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this conversation with you, Kathi. It's real important, and I think we're going to have a good time sharing some interesting, fascinating information and some good ideas about happiness. Reasons not to make New Year's resolutions. One, you sort of already mentioned, we forget them quickly. I think I just give you a few reasons. Another is if you don't, I think a lot of people frame their New Year's resolutions to emphasize something that's wrong, some way in which they're deficient, some way in which they're not living up to some expectations. So that puts the resolution as a negative, and it keeps bringing up negatives. Now, who wants to keep looking at the negatives? So I like the idea of making resolutions that will help you strengthen what's working well. Strengthen what's already working for you. If it's working a little bit, let's strengthen it so it'll work a little bit more. Anyway, so I think how you frame it, don't make a resolution that emphasizes something that you might feel very negative about. And then the timing of resolutions. It turns out that, just because it's December 31st and the calendar is turning, the clock is ticking, that doesn't mean that's the best time for you to make resolutions, to make plans for improvement or for doing things better or reaching your lofty goals. Timing is everything. You just may not feel great. What if you don't feel so great on January 1st? And you're just, it's just not time for you to be thinking about that. That's okay. You can, do it a little bit later. Wait till you feel better, and then make some resolutions, some plans for improvement. So those are some of the reasons I would say don't make them. Wait till you're ready. Keep them positive.
Yeah, that's a good thought, because I know sometimes it's hard to think of, well, I'll wait till January to make a resolution, or I'll wait and start making this change in myself at a certain time, which always, in a sense, sounds good, because then I can keep putting it off. But then January comes around, and I either have forgotten them or I've got 10 of them to do. And so, yeah, that January 1st deadline or date doesn't really work for me. But if we're not going to make resolutions, and thank you for thinking that that's not always a good thing, how do we make changes, and how do we have new habits going?
There's a formula that's been going around. I don't know what the scientific validation of it is. It's probably available somewhere. I'll have to ask Siri or Alexa or somebody to get the answer. But that if you practice a new way of thinking, if you practice a new behavior for 21 days, every day for 21 days, it will become a habit. So practice is a way to change habits. Another idea might be to have a better habit or resolution buddy. Have a pal. Have somebody who you link up with, and you're going to remind each other in a kind way, maybe every week or every month. And you're going to check in with each other. How you doing on that resolution? So you have somebody that gives you support, that inquires, that's interested in what you're doing. And I think being open to the idea that something might come to you anytime during the year, where you say, that's something I want to work on. And so don't say to yourself, oh, I'll have to wait till New Year's to make a resolution. No, I'm going to make some kind of a commitment to it now. So there's some ideas. You can change habits. Consistency, support, keep it positive, look for for good results. That will motivate you to keep going. And,
okay, I know one of the other things that I've found, Steve, is that when I try to encourage someone else to make a new goal, which is certainly so much easier than trying to make a new goal for myself. I'd much rather try to put it on somebody else. But I noticed that when I try to encourage somebody else to make a goal, they're less likely to do it. Can you talk about that?
The powers of persuasion. I think I follow my own kind of guideline, which is don't offer feedback or suggestions to people about improvement or how to do things unless they want to hear them. So you got to check it out. Would you like a suggestion? Somebody's complaining or somebody is talking about something. You get a feeling, they're not saying it directly, maybe, that they would like to be better at that or change that or fix that. Instead of jumping in to fix it and say, oh, well, here's something that will work. I think you check first. Would you like some suggestions? Would you like me to give you an idea of something that you might consider about that? And if they say, yeah, I don't think so, I think I'll work it out on my own, then drop it and leave it alone. They want to do it on their own. If they say, yeah, do you have some ideas? Then you're giving them ideas. Keep in mind that you cannot change other people. I think that's an important decision to make. It's hard enough for us to change ourselves. The example of that is try to lose 5 pounds. It's tough to change ourselves. You can't change other people. That is the way of frustration, and it's very painful trying to fix other people. So you get their permission. Would you like some ideas? Is there some way I could help you with this thing that seems to be bothering you. If you get some positives and they say yes, then I think you make suggestions. You don't give orders. You don't preach. You don't give guarantees. You don't say, well, this will absolutely work. Just here's a suggestion. Let's try this. Would it be okay if I check back with you in some period of time? When do you think would be a good time for me to check back to see how you're doing? I'll give you some encouragement. A week, a month, a day, and just sort of work it out cooperatively with that person.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thanks. I know sometimes with for people living with kidney disease and they have their binders to take with every meal, or they're trying to stay on dialysis the whole time, that staff gets frustrated because they think they can tell them, here's how to do it, and they also find that doesn't work. So I like the idea of, we have to get buy-in if we want to help others make goals, as well as such a great point to find our own reason for wanting to make goals differently than what we already have. So great thought.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Kathi, I'm a big believer in small goals or small steps. If you have a personal trainer, you're trying to build your muscles and bone health and things like that, and we know that lifting weights contributes to that, and the trainer says, I want you to be lifting 100 pounds. When you go to the gym, you take the 100-pound weight. Well, you can't start at 100 pounds. That's the long-term goal. You go in, you pick up the 2-pound weights. That's where I'm going to start. And give yourself permission to build in small steps and increments. It's very important, I think, sustaining the commitment, and it's very important to see results and to see positive results, even if they're small. I am working out. I'm doing a program after having been, and this is a true story about me, I was in the hospital last year for most of the month of February. I came out, I was very weak. I had been strengthening myself for years and working out and doing, but after that time in the hospital, I was very weak. So I start with sitting exercises. I needed to do that. Okay. I couldn't go back to where I was at the level before I was hospitalized. I started with 2-pound weights and, gave myself permission to feel okay. That's my starting point. I had been up to 20-pound weights, but I couldn't do that again, and I would have failed, and I didn't want that sense of failure. And just a couple of weeks ago, I realized I'm ready to go to the 4-pound weights. Okay, improvement. That's great. And so you can make big goals, but small steps.
That's great to hear. I think that also shows the benefit of making the goals specific, because if you don't say 2 pounds or 4 pounds, all that we see is something that doesn't work. And so if something's not going to work, then why keep doing it? So that was a great example of how to make something doable and sustainable and to keep moving forward. But if we don't get specific, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. So how we're going to make it.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point about being specific. The slide that was on the screen just a moment ago was kind of a comic strip of a person making 3 resolutions. One of them, I think, was eat more vegetables. That sounds like a good goal. Sounds reasonable. Sounds healthy, but it's really very vague. Eat more. What's more? More than what? If that goal was written as saying eat half a cup of cooked spinach every other day, you see, that would be a much more specific, measurable goal. just eating more is a little vague, and you're less likely to see success with it. Be specific. Great idea. The next slide that we're looking at says start with only a few goals. I couldn't agree more. Although something that's very interesting about us human beings and how we think and how we're everything, mind and body are not two separate things. They're very interconnected, very interwoven. They work together. They affect each other, our mind and our body. Then all parts of us are interconnected. So here's how that plays out in terms of setting goals. And if you make 10 goals for this year, 10 things that I want to accomplish, you write down the 10 things. The next step would be prioritize them. Can you put them in order? Of the 10 things that you've written down that you want to do this year, which is the most important thing? Which is the least important thing? Which is the second most important thing? So you create a priority list of those 10 things. It turns out, because our lives and our functioning physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually is so interconnected, if you go to work on the first 3 of your 10 goals and concentrate on just those 3, the chances are that in a short period of time, maybe it's a matter of weeks or whatever, you're going to say, wow, I've also made some progress on 4, 5, 6, and 7 without focusing on them directly, because things are interconnected. And the things that are the highest priority to you, work on those, and you'll find many things start to shape up.
That is really good information, because I always find that I'm making, my list of what I want to do is so long. And so if I start to prioritize, and then I just might see that I am getting more of those done. So that's a great idea. I encourage everyone to try it. I know I'm going to make a change there.
I think it was Martin Luther King that I heard was attributed to him. It said that you don't need to see all of the steps of how to get to your final goal. What you need to see is the first 2 or 3 steps and take them. Because when you take the first 2 or 3 steps, then what will happen is the next 2 or 3 steps will appear. Take them. Then a couple more will appear. So you don't have to see the whole thing. You don't have to know how it's all going to work out. Start. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Get going. Take a couple of steps and watch what happens.
Right. Good idea. So what do they mean when they talk about making goals measurable? Is that something that I'm going to do this year, or is that enough?
Well, that's what I was talking about before, about the eating more spinach. You answer a few other questions. What kind of spinach? How are you going to prepare it? Is it cooked? Is it raw? Is it what kind of? So and how much? Is it a cup? Is it a half a cup? So that's measurable. How often? Every day, once a week, once a month. So there are, and that makes it a lot easier to see your success. Make it more specific. Make it something that's measurable, and you will experience your success, and you'll be more motivated to keep going.
Okay. That definitely sounds like a plan. It also, making all these goals and figuring them out and prioritizing them, sounds like a lot of work. So what if I don't want to set specific goals? What else can we do? Just a little caveat about the cartoon that's there. There's a cartoon on the screen for those of you who are only on the phone, and it says, you chewed up my list of New Year's resolutions. The guy's talking to his dog who has a mouthful of paper, and he says, good boy. And I think that just shows how it's so much work to set these things. So what else is there, Steve? What else can we do?
Well, I'm gonna take the other side of the argument. I don't think that setting goals and making a list and prioritizing it, I don't think that's a lot of work at all. And if you think that that's a lot of work to make improvement, try not doing it. You'll be slogging along, maybe falling back. If you don't take the time to say, what do I want to achieve, how, in what period of time, and be reasonable. And how am I going to know that I got there? Want to lose weight or want to gain weight? That's not a good goal. I want to lose weight this year. You know, how much do you want to lose? Well, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this month. Wait a minute. Is that reasonable? 50 pounds is measurable, but I don't think it's reasonable. So you got to get those factors. And I think giving yourself, it's a favor. It's a gift that you give yourself, making the list, thinking about what you want to improve on, and making it reasonable in terms of time and the amount, having somebody to help and encourage and support you. How you doing? Good job, pat on the back. And you can set some goals. You can even set some rewards for yourself. I'm going to eat a half a cup of spinach 3 times a week. So when you do that and you mark it down, you write it down and you check it and say, okay, when I've done that for 3 weeks, I'm going to give myself a reward. I'm going to, and then whatever that might be. I'm going to go to the movies. Just do something that's nice for yourself. I think reward reinforces the progress and makes you feel like, good, I'm going to do some more.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess the thing that came to me while you were speaking is that whether I make goals or not, the time is still going to keep moving on. I'm still going to, if I don't do any, the same amount of time is going to be used. So I guess that's a great point. I should go ahead and make them. So
I saw something on Facebook the other day that I liked. It said, if you can't find joy in snow, then you're going to have the same amount of snow, but you're going to have a lot less joy. So, you got to find some happiness in the things you're doing.
Excellent point. So, Steve, what I would like to ask you to do is, because I have no internet connection for the moment, could you click to the next slide?
Absolutely.
And talk about what are we talking about? Looking for the funny.
Well, I am the director of National Humor Month, which is in the month of April. It starts on April Fool's Day. I didn't start it. A comedian and comic actor named Larry Wilde started it about 40 years ago. Larry, next month, will be 93 years old, and several years ago asked me if I would take over National Humor Month, and I said it was great. It would be an honor. Humor plays a very important part in our lives, because one of the things that makes for humor is looking at all sides of a situation and finding a side that's not as serious as the other sides. And when you can find the lighter side, you lighten up, it shifts your perspective. And that shift of perspective, give yourself permission. Okay, I know there's some serious things going on, but sometimes in the midst of trying to be serious, I can see some humor. Things are lighter. And so I came up with this little suggestion. Look for the funny. Maybe it's in there. And funny is up to you. Your sense of humor is very personal to you. And if you find amusement and humor in a situation, I think that's a plus for you. So we encourage people through National Humor Month and also through this organization called World Laughter Tour, where we teach laughter therapy. And laughter therapy It doesn't mean that laughter fixes things. Doesn't mean that laughter cures anything. But it can help what's working well to work better. Laughter has many benefits, and humor has many benefits in terms of perspective and even our brain chemistry. So it's a good thing to give ourselves permission to do that. And it's not to replace or mean that you're never going to be unhappy or have frustration or scary things going on. We do. We all do that. It means we have some balance for it.
Good point. Thank you. Could you go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about?
I sure will.
Thank
This
you.
slide says make goals positive. So and the graphic illustration on this slide says New Year's resolution: laugh a little louder, smile a little bigger, love a little deeper, and walk through life a little slower. So those are positive, not as specific as we were talking about, but sometimes even the general idea is okay, especially when it's positive. I want to move in that direction. I want to laugh a little more. I want to love a little deeper. So make your goals positive. By the way the mind works, the thoughts that you hold create images that can confound your resolutions. In other words, if you don't want to think of purple polar bears, you say to yourself, I'm not going to think about purple polar bears. I'm not going to think about purple polar bears. And you keep repeating, and what you're doing is creating images of purple polar bears. And that's all you're thinking of. The way to not think of purple polar bears is to think of red monkeys or zebras. Think of some, and so when you say to yourself, I'm not going to eat Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm not going to have donuts. I'm not going to eat that cake. I'm not going to eat that cake. I'm not going to, and what you're doing is you're picturing cake, donuts, and you're putting the temptation up in your brain. The way to reduce your focus and the temptation, by the way, one of my favorite sayings is, I can resist anything but temptation. But the way to reduce the temptations about the cake is not to say I'm not going to eat cake because you're just imagining cake. It's to say I'm going to eat more green vegetables. I'm going to eat more whole grains. So you keep picturing the nutritional intake that's good for you. You can't do, I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. Well, if you keep saying that as your mantra, what you're doing is constantly picturing cigarettes and tempting yourself. So switch the choice of words to describe the goal as something positive and appealing. Want to go to the next slide?
Please do.
You got it. Train your mind to see the good in every situation. That's not always easy to do, but I come from a tradition, and I've talked to many other people who seem to agree with this, that no matter what happens in life, if you look at it from the right perspective, if you look at it, study it all around, there is going to be a lesson for you that if you can learn that lesson, it will be to your advantage. And my wife and I, when we met, we discovered that we had both experienced the sudden death of people we loved in our lives way many years before. And we both had been on a kind of a quest about, why do these things happen? What is it? What good is that? It's terrible. And we both had decided that perhaps even in a sudden loss of somebody we loved, there might be something we could learn that would be an advantage to us. What we discovered together, and we adopted it as our life philosophy, is the saying, don't postpone joy. Mark Twain said, life is uncertain, so eat your dessert first. See that? You thought that is part of what these losses were trying to tell us, to live our lives fully, to make every day count. Today is our wedding anniversary. Pam and I have been married 12,814 days. 12,814 days. We count the days. We're not counting on the years. We're trying to make every day count. That came from trying to see, is it an advantageous lesson in a terrible situation in our lives? It's worked out pretty well for us.
That is great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Okay, want to go to the next slide?
I do. I am back on the internet now. I just need
all right.
to be off.
Can you take over? You want to do it?
Either way. Oops. It
you
looks
go.
like okay. I cannot advance the slides.
All right. I'll work it until either you get it or we get through with this.
Okay.
The next slide has a picture of Audrey Hepburn, movie star, that says, "For beautiful eyes, look for the good in others. For beautiful lips, speak only words of kindness. And for poise, walk with the knowledge that you're never alone." So she was taking the idea of looking good, which you'd think might be a superficial, surface kind of a thing, beautiful eyes, beautiful lips, poise, and she turned it to your actions, how you treat other people, how you look at the world. That's really what makes a difference. I'm going to move to the next slide, which has a caricature of me with a microphone, and it says, the headline is 5 Things Positive Attitudes Will Do. So I've been working on the idea of positive attitudes for almost 40 years. And what do they do? If you can have a way to balance the negative with positive attitudes support healing. Anything, if you're trying to heal, you're in treatment, whatever you're doing, whether it has to do with diabetes, dialysis, anything in your life that you're trying to heal from, it's going to go better if your outlook is positive. I talk to doctors and nurses a lot, and I pose this to them. I said, if you have 2 patients and they have exactly the same diagnosis and exactly the same prescription, exactly the same treatment plan, and one of them is angry and sad and fearful and pessimistic, and one of them is optimistic and upbeat and confident, is one of them going to do better in their treatment? And everybody in the medical profession knows the one who's positive is going to do better, even when the diagnosis is the same and the treatment plan is the same. If we can find things that can block anger, fear, depression, those kinds of things, we can block those. That's a therapeutic ally. That's going to make the treatment work better. So positive attitudes support healing. They reduce stress because positive attitudes give us a way of looking at things from which they're not so fearful or awesome, and we can handle them. Positive attitudes help us build resilience. We get down. Everybody has setbacks and frustrations, but you don't wallow in them. When you cultivate positive attitudes and make that the practice of your life, you'll have downtime, bad time, sad time, and reverses and that kind of obstacle, but you won't stay there that long. You'll bounce back more quickly. That's resilience. Positive attitudes create harmony. You get along better with other people. You're not so angry. You're not so judgmental. You're not walking around saying it's my way or the highway. You're more flexible. You get along better with people. And positive attitudes promote hope. One of my friends is Dr. Lee Burke, the founder of psychoneuroimmunology, and he has done research on what's called the biology of hope. When we feel emotions, our biology changes. Anger has a biology. Fear has a biology. Hope has a biology. Love has a biology. And positive attitudes promote hopefulness in us, and hope helps keep us healthy. So those 5 things that positive attitudes will do. Everyone who looks at this on the screen, they'll see that.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I would encourage some of our participants and audience on this call to look at what, can you write down some things when you hear, when you heard that you have chronic kidney disease or that you were in stage 5 kidney failure? What, what are the positives that are still there for you? Because I think the things that Steve mentioned are just so important to be as healthy as we can. So I encourage everybody to just, at some point, whether it's on dialysis or sitting at home, to make a list, because I know I found for myself that sometimes if I'm getting into a bad space, it's hard to remember the positives and to be positive about something. So having that list someplace that you can pull out will sort of help remind you of where you want to be. So
I'll tell you, a good family friend was recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we knew that it was very important. It's such a shock. Anytime you hear the word or you hear that kind of a diagnosis, it sends you into a tailspin. But we knew that it's very important for all of us involved in supporting her to look for what we call points of hope. Point of hope. Not a guarantee of a cure or how long you're going to live or anything, but a point of hope, and hang on to those points of hope. And the doctor said, even though it was kind of a fluke, it was kind of accidental, we really discovered this very early in the process. Most people don't discover it till way later. That was a point of hope. Caught this early. And each time they said, they did the MRI, did the whole body scan, it had not spread anywhere. Point of hope. They have a treatment. They have a treatment plan available. That the history of the treatment plan with other people has been very successful. Point of hope. So we gather, we look for and gather points of hope.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for sharing that. So we've...
you're in control of the slides. I think
we can do it together. We can do it together. So my next question to you, though, is, so how does humor and laughter, we've talked about the positive attitude, we talked a little bit of, about humor and laughter, but how do all of those things work together?
Because the humor is something that can be a very kind way of looking at things. I remember we had a neighbor and her daughter was in the 3rd grade, and she came home and she said, I wrote a story today in school. Would you like to hear the story? And her mom said, sure, I want to hear the story. And so she took out the paper from the backpack and she started reading and said, this is a story about twin girls, age 5 and 9. Now, you could look at that and you could say, you could get real judgmental. You could say, well, yeah, hey, anybody knows that twins are the same age. What kind of thing is that? You did it wrong. You said it wrong. You can be real critical, real judgmental, or you can laugh. You can say that's cute. You can be kind-hearted about how you take that. Kids do things. Adults do things all the time. And in an attempt to be serious, an attempt to be talk about something that's very important, we do it in a way, because we're imperfect, we make a mistake, and we give ourselves permission to see those mistakes as humorous, and we don't get done in by
that. Great point. I wonder if you could share some of the misconceptions about about humor and laughter.
Yeah, very
which
important.
are not appearing on my show.
Well, they will. Well, I don't know how we get them to. Let me see. There we go. They'll come one at a time on here. So everything that's on this slide is wrong, and we want to get people to correct their thinking about it. A friend of mine, Joel Goodman, Dr. Goodman, a doctor of education, he used the term misconceptions, M-Y-T-H. These are myth. Sounds like you're lisping the misconceptions. But so here are some things that will help you embrace humor, embrace your sense of humor and attitudes, rather than reject them. Because, there's a mistaken notion. Here, let's look at these 6. One of them says you're born with a sense of humor. So there's people saying, well, I don't have a very good sense of humor. When sense of humor was being passed out, I think I was in the wrong line. I didn't get one. Well, it turns out that your sense of humor is not something that's inborn. It's something you develop, and you can develop and improve, have a better way of seeing the lighter side and be more amused by more of life, more readily and more relaxed anytime in life. You didn't have to be born with that. You develop it. How do you develop it? You look at people that you think have a good sense of humor. There's many ways, but I'll give you this, a couple of them. And you say, let me see what they laugh at. Let me see what's funny to them. Maybe it would be funny to me too. Anyway, you can develop your sense of humor. Another misconception is that a sense of humor is about telling jokes. Well, I'm not very good at telling jokes, and my advice is if you can't remember a joke, please don't dismember it. But actually, there's some evidence that very few, maybe only 2 to 5% of people can remember jokes and tell them well. You don't need to have ability to tell jokes to have a great sense of humor. A definition of sense of humor that I find very helpful is it's the ability to see the less serious side of a situation. Sense of humor is how you see things, not your ability to produce and deliver and be a comedian. Besides which, you don't have to tell jokes. You can go to the card shop where they sell greeting cards, birthdays, anniversaries, get well, and look at the humorous cards. You don't have to tell the joke. The card does it for you. So, don't worry about being able to tell jokes. Another misconception is that you need a reason to laugh. There are laugh stealers who will, you're giggling and chuckling, and maybe you and your coworkers at work or friends or somebody in class, and somebody comes and says, what's so funny? They're tapping their foot. They're all serious. They're all, what's so funny? And it's like there's something wrong with you for being amused and finding some humor. And sometimes you can't explain what's funny. Sometimes the amusement is what we call irrational. It doesn't have a clear reason. I don't know. It just struck me funny. Give yourself permission to say that. I don't know. Somebody says, what's so funny? I'm not sure. I don't know. But I'm trying to make my daily quota of laughter. Steve Wilson said I have to do that. Leave me alone. I got to giggle here. I feel better when I do that. Another misconception is you laugh because you feel good. And you don't laugh because you may laugh because you're amused, but when we feel good, we may smile, we may be expansive in certain ways. But a lot of times we laugh because we don't feel good. And laughter is nature's gift to us. It's a mechanism to discharge the tension that we can feel in life. And in fact, there's even a particular kind of laughter we call nervous laughter. I'm nervous and I find myself giggling. That's your natural way of discharging the tension and reducing the physiology of laughter within you. You'll be healthier for it. So sometimes you don't laugh because you feel good, but more often you feel good because you laugh. Laughter has such a strong way of changing our physiology towards health and good functioning. We want to laugh as much as we can. You'll feel good because you laugh. We got another one to put on there. There's another one on this list. You got that? Kathi, are you with me?
I am.
Okay, I brought this one up. Another one of the misconceptions is you can't be serious and humorous at the same time. And a lot of managers and supervisors, a lot of parents and teachers say, well, I can't joke around with these folks because if I do, they won't take me seriously. Not true. If you look up the word serious in the dictionary, you'll find that a lot of the meanings have to do with being responsible, not being solemn. Solemn is different from being serious. Serious means I take my responsibilities as something I seriously. But I can take myself lightly. And you can do that simultaneously. And in fact, if you don't know how to relax and lighten up when the group saw something funny, then you get alienated. Wow, does she have any feelings? She never laughs. She never jokes. A healthy, well-balanced personality, a mentally healthy person, laughs and is also responsible about values and beliefs and things that they need to take care of, and you do it all so you can be serious and humorous. Lighten up.
Hey, good point, Steve. Oh, there it is. So we've talked about not making resolutions. We've talked about having a positive attitude and keeping humor and laughter as part of our lives. And in our last 15 minutes, can you share, do the 6 happiness habits build on the things we've talked about, and how can we develop them?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you asked. Let's talk about this. I created this many years ago, psychologically sound set of principles to give you practice, to give you actions to do that produce all of these wonderful effects of being positive. They're really good. And I called it Goodhearted Living. And it turns out the science that came after we developed this, after Goodhearted Living, was a psychological and attitudinal program. It actually turned out the cardiac specialists talk about attitudes and your heart. And it turns out that these things are actually good for cardiac functioning, but they're good for mental health functioning and being happier. So Goodhearted Living has 6 practices. Suggest that you try these. Let's go to the next slide. And what I've done is to help make it more memorable, easier to remember all 6. We just tell people when you're starting out on the path of Goodhearted Living, each day of the week is assigned a particular practice, and that'll help you remember it. That's just for getting started, because if you do this for 3 weeks, every day for 3 weeks, following the days that are assigned to the practices, pretty soon you're going to realize it's so natural, it feels so good, you get such good results that you start doing all of these every day. But just to get started, Mondays are for paying compliments. And compliments, if you pay compliments and make it a practice, that means you have to look for things that are good and then take action. Say something about it. Nice dress. I like the way you helped us on the committee. You came up with some great ideas today. I always feel better when I see you. When you walk in here for your dialysis, you're always cheerful. Boy, do I appreciate that. So those are compliments. It's the antidote for being critical and judgmental. You can go all over the world. You won't find a statue put up to honor a critic. We want to be more positive. So, and being critical and judgmental is painful. It's psychologically painful for you if you're a critic. Look at that dress he's wearing. Look at my father-in-law, God bless him, rest his soul. We'd be driving along, and he was so critical. He'd see a man walking on the sidewalk. He would say, his pants are too short. He should have a party and invite his pants to introduce him to his shoes. What? He was so critical, So Mondays, we pay compliments. And by the way, you don't have to try to memorize this from this recording because it's available. The whole thing is available in a summary at worldlaughtertour.com. And Kathy's got some extra copies of these and things we can share with you. Anyway, Mondays,
Right.
the practice is pay compliments.
Okay,
Tuesday,
great one, and thanks for sharing that.
Oh. Two for two.
Okay, I'm gonna let you share.
Set up the slide, Kathy. I'll take my hand off the mouse. You do it. So is Tuesday. Tuesdays are for flexibility. And the proverb that we refer to is the tree that bends in the wind doesn't break. People who are not flexible in their thinking, people who are not willing to say, maybe there's more than one right way to do things. Maybe there's more than one way to skin a cat. Maybe we can have different opinions. Maybe we're both right because there are opinions. But being flexible, finding other ways of doing things means that's the antidote for being rigid. People who are rigid, my way or the highway, I know the right way, they also end up being critical, blaming. Whose fault is this? Who did this? So all those things are painful ways of living. You build up a crust of pain around yourself. You got to break that crust, relax, be flexible. It didn't work out this way. Okay, I'll try another way. You won't snap. You won't crack. You'll bend. You won't break. So then Wednesdays are for gratitude. The practice of Goodhearted Living on the Wednesdays is gratitude. Again, keep in mind that you'll end up doing all of these any day of the week. But gratitude is based on some of the most ancient wisdom that we have found, that happiness comes from wanting what you have, not having what you want. Can you just sort of be grateful, be thankful, say thank you. One of my great teachers said, all through your life, find time, go back and call, text, write, send people who helped you. People, a lot of us know that we don't succeed because we think we can. We succeed because other people believe in us, because other people think we can. Find those people who were good to you and kind to you. And just once in a while, go back and say thanks. Thank you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for helping me over a rough spot. So gratitude is the practice on Wednesdays. Thursdays are dedicated to acts of kindness. Again, you're starting out on the path to Goodhearted Living till you get it all memorized. Thursdays, acts of kindness. Something that you can do that doesn't cost a lot of money or take a lot of time, but helps another person's life be a little bit easier. That's a great way to come up with an act of kindness. You ask yourself, what's something I could do right now that would make another person's life a little bit easier? Maybe you're in a bank, maybe you're in a store, it's a parking lot. You hold the door open for somebody. You carry a package for somebody. You're walking down the street and there are parking meters, and you see somebody's meter expired and they're probably going to get a ticket. You've got some coins in your purse or your pocket. Put some coins in there for that person. That's terrific. Maimonides, the great king, said that is one of the highest forms of being helpful, kind, and charitable. Help people you don't even know who you're helping. They don't even know that they got help. The world's a better place because you did it. Acts of kindness on Thursdays.
That's great.
Fridays.
Yeah, that's better.
Fridays are for forgiveness. That's a tough one for a lot of us. Forgiveness. I am so mad at that guy. Look what they did. Look how they treated us. My whole group, my whole family, my whole neighborhood. It could be your tribe, whatever you want to call it. As you're carrying anger, the psychological remedy that we call forgiveness has to do with finding ways to not be so angry. And sometimes it comes all at once and you can just give it up. I'm not going to be angry. Sometimes it's a little bit at a time. I'm less angry. I have a better understanding of what happened and maybe why it happened. What happened to that person that they treated me that way? I'm not taking it personally, but I feel bad for them. that that's how they live. I'm not going to be so angry. Buddy Hackett, the famous comedian, said, I don't hold a grudge because while I'm angry, the other guy's out dancing. Your anger only hurts you. It drives up your blood pressure. It gets your stomach filled with gastric digestive juices, acids that you need that Pepsid AC and the Maalox and that kind of thing. We only hurt ourselves by carrying anger. Anything you can do, and by the way, forgive yourself. Don't hold grudges against yourself. You are, after all, only human. And that's very important, because if you're human, you're not perfect. Give yourself a little slack and lighten up on yourself. Forgive yourself. Don't carry anger at yourself. Don't carry anger at other people. And that will be empowering for you. So that's the 5th practice of Goodhearted Living. And the weekends in Goodhearted Living are for chocolate. Weekends are for chocolate. What's he talking about? Well, first of all, if you've been following along with this, you realize that each of the first 5 practices, important as they are, was assigned one day of the week to get to learn it. The chocolate practice is so important that we give it 2 days, the weekend. Do something sweet. It doesn't literally mean eat chocolate. It means chocolate represents sweet things in life. And the way life is for most of us, and these days especially, the sweet things are not happening automatically. And people are not knocking on your door saying, I've got something wonderful for you. We have to build that in. That's our power, is to build in time and set it aside and make it important, put it on the calendar. And you want to have something at least every couple of weeks. Now, for me, it's reading a book that I want to get into. That, boy, that's a really good book. I want to spend some time. And it might just, sometimes it's minutes, but that's a sweet thing. Playing with the grandkids. I love it when the grandkids come over. They like to play board games. They're funny. We laugh. Whatever it is for you. You want to walk the dog. You want to take a hot bath. You want to look at a movie. Whatever it is for you, your sweet things, put it in, put it on the calendar, make it sacred time, call it chocolate. That'll be your chocolate. And so those are the 6 practices of Goodhearted Living.
Those all sound doable. So that's great to hear.
All right.
And I know we're just about out of time here, and so we've got on this slide summarizing the 6 habits one more time, but I will move to the next slide that shows that. And I ask, in how many languages? I know the handout that we're going to send people is in English, and we could send it to you in Spanish. And on Steve's website, there's quite a few different languages that you can choose from to have this sent to you. So,
we were serious when we called our organization World Laughter Tour, and we wanted to make this thing that we do, laughter therapy, and the various principles available to the whole world. Laughter is universal. You can go anywhere in the world. You don't have to speak the language, but we know what a smile means. It's so important. So I have had the program called Goodhearted Living, the 6 practices, translated into dozens of languages. So if you know somebody who would enjoy knowing about Goodhearted Living, but they speak Hungarian or Dutch or French or Italian or Greek or Chinese or Korean or Swahili or Hebrew or Japanese, we have it available for free to you to give to them, for them, in all different languages. And if we don't have their favorite language, we'll get it. WorldLaughterTour.com. Look for Goodhearted Living on the website. The different language translations are downloadable for free, and it will make you're going to enjoy your best life. You're going to come closer to it if you include Goodhearted Living.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Steve. And I think, again, all of these things, find a way to do each of them at the dialysis facility. Who can you give a compliment to? If you're going to get on late, be a little flexible. Thank somebody for what they're doing. I always heard that thanking the person who's cleaning the restroom makes is a form of gratitude, because they don't usually hear thank you for doing such a task that a lot of people would rather not do. Loved your thoughts about kindness and forgiveness, which is one of the hardest things, I think, for people to do, but really important. And of course, I love the do sweet things on the weekends. So that's great. So as people are getting ready to leave the program, we'd kind of like to say, what will you do going forward? And so we encourage you to think about some of these things, and feel free to put them on your feedback form or send us an email, and we can talk more about it, or put something in the chat room, and we'll make sure we get back with you. And as we're out of time, I want to thank you, Steve, so much for all the information that you shared. There's so much, I think, that can benefit everyone who's on the call today. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Kathi. I love it. I will do more. I'm so honored to be able to contribute to all the good things you're doing. That's going to be a great year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, being here. And again, you'll get information about the recording as well as the handouts. And so please complete the feedback form. The handouts will be posted and emailed. And please join us for our next webinar on February 28th, when we talk about It Takes a Village, preparing your support team, your support plan for your transplant care with your team. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.